bringing a good friend, Bobby Humphrey. I'm not going to read all of Bobby's stats and all the different things he did. Just know the guy was a heck of a college player, a great pro player as well, and a good friend and a great dad. Good morning, Bobby. How are you, sir?
Hey, Bobby.
Good morning. I'm doing fine. If you got 45 minutes to an hour, I can read all my accolades for you.
It'd take longer than that, Bobby. It'd take us 2 hours to go through all the stuff you did. Bobby, I want to ask you this because I don't really understand. How does the supplemental draft? You were first round pick in the supplemental draft in 1989. How does that work, Bobby?
Well, back then, the way it worked was that it was a draft after the draft, and it was for players who were injured and was not ready to go into the regular draft. And I can't remember, was it a month, maybe a month and a half, or something like that after the regular draft. But what happens is the way I was told it happened was that what each team have to do, they have to throw their name in the hat, whether or not they wanted to pick in the first round or in the second round. So no one knew who was going to pick, but they had to throw in that they wanted to pick. If they wanted to pick me, they would have to write that down. They said write it down and put it in the hat that they wanted to take me in the first round. So no team know who was going to be taken until they revealed who put their name in the hat to be taken.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I explain that right? Where it makes sense?
Yeah, I was just, curious, and I'm sure they're going to play football, but I wonder if guys like Najee Harris that decided not to go, and then they're sitting there now, and they're worried about whether you're even going to have college football. Could he say, whoops, wait a minute, can I put my name in there now, even before we have the draft, just because of these times? You think a guy like that regrets that decision now? Of course, hindsight's 20/20.
It's hard to tell because you don't really know what's going to happen. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I don't even know how the supplementary draft works now. Are you guys familiar with how it works now?
No.
I don't think it's the same way that it did back then. You got to realize it was back in 1989.
Right. Dad?
That was when your father was walking the court side with a famous plaid jacket.
I don't know that I was walking the court side, but I was there.
With that ugly face, Bobby. That face was ugly, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You're a little bit surprised that Nick Saban's ahead of the rest of the people by getting all the kids the Apple Watch in order to. I had said on the show that I felt like he was having them do exactly certain things, so many not push-ups, so much weight, so much a very organized, best you can have organized practice. And that's just what makes him so good. The reason to go there is, I think when your son decided to go pro, we had you on one time. I couldn't tell whether you were really excited about it or not. I thought maybe you might have questioned it yourself. But when they took him, Washington took him, I think it's because that Nick Saban is ahead of the curve in everything he does, made your kid a little bit more ready to play than some kids. Comment on that.
Well, I guess when we talked before, I think what happens is that you never know what's going to happen in these type of situations. So, you can assume and think that's one thing's going to happen, but you never really know. We sitting there and we watching the draft after Marlon decided that he wanted that he wanted to leave, and we talked about it as a family. We sitting there on draft night and we were seeing all the trading and things that was going back and forth, and one of the guys that was traded kind of blew our mind because we knew nothing about.
Yeah,
and it was Patrick Mahomes. and we were sitting there, and we was following it very closely, and Marlon and I was talking. I was like, "Who in the world is Patrick Mahomes?" And Marlon said, "I don't know who that is," and because he played out in another conference, and if you didn't really follow that conference, you really didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And you didn't. Well, you knew, and you may have knew of him, but you didn't know how good of a player he was. I should say that. And lo and behold, everybody know who he is now. And we went back and we thought about that about a month ago, And I said, Marlon, you remember when we were sitting down and we was talking about who in the world is Patrick Malone and why would they trade all the way up to him? So what happens is why I said you don't really know.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, these scouts has in the back of their minds, and these teams know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they communicate with these coaches. And I think with what Coach Saban has done at Alabama and the athletes and the players that he has produced and the way he goes out and finds talent and he selects his players, he's always looked for players that can play at the highest level. And just so happens that those players that play at the highest level are players that also make it into the league. And I think that has resonated in the NFL. And sometimes they would take a kid from Alabama.
Well, he's just so NFL affiliated that if I've got a son that's about to sign, I'm saying to myself, my guy's going to be really good. I got a guy that they're going to call and ask him the opinion of my son quicker than with anybody else.
Oh, I would imagine so. I would imagine all these scouts and people have communication with a lot of these coaches throughout college football, and definitely Coach Saban, being that he once was a NFL coach.
He's kind of a step ahead of the norm, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, this thing with this Apple Watches is about the most creative thing I've ever heard of. I mean, it's pretty smart, brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it was Dr. Ray and the new strength coaches that he brought in. They're kind of ahead of the curve. They're on the cutting edge. Maybe it's a little bit different. So it's a different way of doing it than Coach Cochran. So they probably said, hey, Coach probably said, how are we going to track these guys? He said, well, the one way to do it is with an Apple Watch. Get compliance on the phone and find out if we can do it legally. And they get it passed. Bobby, I would say probably a good time to buy some Apple stock, because I think a lot of schools across the country today, after they heard that, they're going to be probably trying to do the same thing.
I would imagine. I can remember another guy that was down there was pretty smart and ahead of the curve before Coach Saban got there, and named Coach Bryant.
Yeah.
Guys like that are thinking way ahead of the competition. And in order to be successful, you got to stay ahead of your competition. And I think Coach Saban is one of those guys that has shown and proven that he's going to do whatever it takes to stay ahead of his competition.
Well, that's why.
Bobby, we're in a process, but they're in a process of trying to decide players with ability versus players that have been injured a lot, like Tua. There are attitudes on one side of the page that say, I'm going to take the guy who is a bit less likely injured. I think he's probably just as good. I know I'm going to have him. Just forget Joe Burrow. He's going number one anyway. The other side of the page says, I've got a guy here that's very, very good. I'm not sure. He's injury prone. That's kind of a scary deal. I don't ask you to decide on the radio. You don't have to do that. But it's a kind of a scary deal is to know what to do. Is it not?
Well, I think what happens when you're talking about selecting somebody in the draft is that you got to know, what your plans are for him. I'm reminded of, I think it was Jalen Smith, who got selected in the first round by the Dallas Cowboys. And he set out the whole year, rehab. They knew it was hurt. He tore his ACL, I think maybe in Notre Dame. I think maybe the last game, maybe a bowl game, or was the last game, maybe the championship game, something like that. And he still got selected. But they rehabbed him. They knew he was a player. And they knew he could be an effective player. So they had time to kind of invest in him, and he's actually paying off for him. So I think some teams, it's every team situation and every GM situation of what they have on their roster and what their goals are long term. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys long term thinking that this could be a great player for us, and it worked out pretty good for them. So you're right. You got teams on both sides of the fence that think that way. Some teams need somebody to come in and pull the trigger right away. Cincinnati needs a quarterback, and they need one really bad, and they can't get one in free agency because there's not any. I think there might be a few more guys that's left out in free agency, but I think they may end up going to the draft. They got the number one pick, so they're probably going to pick someone that can come in and probably they can plug in immediately. Now, the risk of that is that you're getting a rookie quarterback to come in and you're putting a lot of pressure on him. Now, whether a quarterback can handle that pressure or not, that remains to be seen. Most of the quarterbacks that have come in, they've done well. Their first year, they've had somebody to kind of tutor them and they kind of learn up on it, and then they kind of get plugged into as a starting guy. But there have been some guys who come in as rookies and just light it up. But you just never know.
We're talking with Bobby Humphrey. Bobby, Coach Saban said yesterday, hey, if we could have 2 weeks with the guys, not even in pads, just for teaching, and then a month to practice, I think we could have them ready. I don't think college guys are as mature as these NFL guys. They're just not as disciplined probably to work out on their own. Is that enough time if they get them back 2 weeks for walkthroughs without pads and have a month to practice before that September 4th game against USC? When you were in college, could you have been ready that quick to be ready to go?
Wow, boy, that's tough. But I guess you got to have a mindset. You got to know the mindset of your team and the leadership of your team, and not only that, you got to know what's the leadership of your staff.
Yeah.
And but I think to answer that question, I would like to say yes, but as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, I don't know. That I would like to say probably half would be ready, and the other half probably wouldn't.
Right.
Because some are probably more mature enough to be able to make that adjustment and stay focused, and then the other half may not be. But that's tough to do. 2 weeks, and then 4 weeks of practice.
Yeah.
Be ready for a game.
Yep.
I think that could. I guess with a lot of discipline and a lot of focusedness and getting everybody on the same page, I guess it can be done.
Well, one of the things you told us, and everybody's not like Marlon. You told us last time we had him on, I think it was maybe back in the summer, you said he was on that iPad all the time studying. So here's a different kind of kid. He's disciplined. There's no reason why this guy's a Pro Bowler this year, but it didn't happen just this year. It happened probably all the things you saw him doing this summer when he was probably out working other guys. And most of your college kids are not that mature. Just talk about Marlon and all the stuff that goes into where he got to.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. You have levels of athletes, of college kids, Obviously, your seniors, the guys that are coming in are going to be seniors, second-year, third-year players, are going to know a little bit more about what it takes to be ready and get prepared. But younger guys, and there may be some, younger guys that are more mature too, that are mature as well. But Marlon has always wanted to excel, so he's always been a student. He's a student of. He's pretty much a student of anything he does. You take, for instance, running summer track. When we made Junior Olympics, Marlon knew everybody that he was competing against, or the top 10 athletes that he was competing against in the hurdles. So he went online and looked at the rankings, found out what times they were running, and knew exactly where they were from and what times they were running, and knew what his competition was like. Now, you're talking about a kid that knew this here when he was doing this here when he was like 10, 12 years old. So he's always been a kind of guy that wanted to get himself prepared, both physically and mentally. So he's kind of always been that way, and I think it's just has something to do with his drive. And everybody, everybody have levels of drive. Marlon can work out by himself, where I needed somebody to work out with. It's kind of to help me drive. Somebody to say, okay, you can do this extra lap. You're tired, but push yourself. Well, you can leave Marlon at the track, and he's going to do that extra lap and probably another 2 after that. But there's others that just can't do that. So I think it's all about the level of how I was successful and he was successful too, but you talk about that maturity level and understanding who needs some kids really need an Apple Watch. But there are some probably don't need one because they're doing everything that the coaches are asking them to do.
Good point.
Bobby, I ask you this because you and I are the same back with Coach Bryant. Coach Bryant's grandson, when they start naming quarterbacks at Alabama, he's very, very good. Big, tall guy, can really throw it. But when they start naming quarterbacks from the kid Jones is all the way down to his brother, he's always named last. I know his mom.
I think it is, but I kind of don't look at it that way. And, because, quarterback is a position where only one person going to play. Okay? And by the way, I think he's a very good player. I think he's got a gun for an arm. He's a tall kid, can see over the line of scrimmage. Smart, very sharp kid, very smart. I watched him play in high school, and his accuracy in terms of his ball delivery, in terms of ball placement, he probably places the ball better than any high school quarterback I ever seen. Now,
he's really good. Yeah,
he's really. And when I say ball placement, I'm talking about balls within the frame of the body where it's a catchable ball. You know, sometimes ball can be a little wide, be a little high, be a little low. He puts the ball. He has great ball placement. So I think he's a very good player quarterback, and I think he can play. Now, with the transfer portal, I think we don't need to rely too heavily on the fact that his great-grandfather, you know, who was the coach there, was there, and that we should hold him in his standards of why he shouldn't be able to transfer and hold it against him if he wants to transfer, if he wants to play, that is.
Yeah.
Now, but just so happens it just don't – it's still a hard decision to make if it came down to that. But I wouldn't hold it against him as an Alabama fan if he wanted to transfer.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think it's hard on him. And I don't know. For all I know, Barry, he may he may be the second string quarterback. I mean, he may be. I just don't. Every time we talk about quarterbacks, we know who's going to be at Auburn. We know LSU doesn't have one. All of a sudden, we know Alabama's got 4. It's hard.
Yeah, that is kind of odd, though. He's always either mentioned last or not mentioned at all. And I've noticed that, too. And I think that, you know, I was hoping that we would have spring practice so we can see, you know, what the competition would look like in terms of how things would shake out and all that there. But I'm quite sure the guys down there, they kind of, you know, the coaches and the coaching staff kind of have an idea of what they want to do, what direction they want to take. I tell you, in order to do what Coach is saying he needs to do, boy, he's going to have to make a lot of decisions. He's going to have to do some serious evaluation, which I'm almost certain he's very, very capable of doing. That shouldn't be hard for him as a coach. He's been doing it all these years.
Yeah, I ask you that because you and I, you know, we know all about that deal, and it's kind of interesting nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever mentions him or anything. I wanted to bring that up, Barry.
Bobby,
but I think you're right, Wimp. I think he is a very good player. Now, obviously, he hadn't had a chance to get in a ball game at Alabama, but watching him throughout high school and watching him throw the ball and his arm and his smarts and everything, I think he's a very good player. And I think he's probably going to be in the mix. You know, he just may be it just hadn't probably revealed it yet, but I think he should be in the mix and considered for an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Bobby, you got any of the kids home during this time when you can't do anything?
Yeah, the kids are all home. So it's been nice to have everybody home, and but boy, I tell you, boy, I didn't realize how much groceries you can go through.
Yeah, I went the other day. I got some crumb grabbers in my house. The bill was $500 when we checked out. So last time we talked to you, you said Marlon hadn't picked up a check yet. Has he picked up any check yet for you? Or are you still paying?
No, he's starting to get a little bit. He's starting to pick up the tab a little bit.
Is he? Okay, good.
He's starting to loosen up on that pocketbook a little bit.
Well, I know you guys got him on a budget, so keep him on that budget. Bobby, great stuff, Bobby, as always. We appreciate you being on.
Okay, then.